All right, I decided that I'm going to record something giving advice to a caregiver. And this will be a little difficult because everyone may have a similar um, situation, a similar experience, but the way you choose to handle that experience is going to be vastly different depending on who you are. So I'm not offering this advice saying that you absolutely must take it. I'm offering it as a means of helping you and helping you to consider what you might want to do. All of these things worked for me, but they worked for me, but it's possible that they could also work for you. So, one thing I did before Mommy actually came home from the rehab facility was I made certain that I watched documentaries and anything I could find related to Alzheimer's disease or dementia, any type of dementia, anything I could find, I watched. And a film that was very helpful is a film about Glenn Campbell, who suffered and died ultimately from Alzheimer's disease. The name of the film, I believe, is I'll Be Me. It's a wonderful documentary, very honest one. And then there's a few things on YouTube. There was one person, a son, who had a mom that was in a facility, and he would pick her up for a few hours once a week, bring her back to his house or bring her to her favorite little place, and he would record, he would tape those outings, and he did that until she died. And I believe his mom died a little bit before Mommy did. So those were the only things I actually found. Some things were helpful that I saw. Um, Everything I experienced was pretty different from what I saw in the film with Glenn Campbell. Some were similar, but some were different. But I think the main difference for me was the fact that I was doing it with Mommy. I didn't have help. It was just me. Where in these other cases, Glenn Campbell, of course, is wealthy, so they had help. And the young man with his mom, she was in a facility, and he had her a few hours each week. So that's a lot different than 24/7. But I'm here to tell you that if you have to do it alone, you can absolutely do it. It may seem hard, and of course it's going to be emotionally and physically taxing. It just will be, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it. You can do it. Hopefully you will have help, but if you don't think that it can't be done, because believe me, if I could do it, anybody could do it. You just have to be determined that you're going to do it. And you will. You may not be able to, but if you really want to, and you're alone and you have to do it, I'm just telling you that it's possible. It's not impossible. I thought it was possible, but I thought it wasn't possible because I was told by CNAs and different medical personnel within the rehab facility that it was impossible to bring Mommy home without a team of people because she needed 24-hour care. And God told me it is possible. You don't have to have all of that. So I just had me and Mommy, and we did it together. So I watched films, as I said, and I'm trying to look over my paperwork because I don't want to leave anything out. The Department of Aging is crucial because Typically, the Department of Aging, I don't know where you would have a department, whatever Department of Aging is closest to you in the state of Illinois or whatever state you're from. The Department of Aging is pretty much like DCFS, old people, little old people. And they are a very wonderful resource because they can set you up with a person, a social worker, to come out and assess the person that you're taking care of. And they can pretty much give you all of the information you need and walk you through it so that you can do what you need to do for your loved one. And don't be ashamed or afraid to reach out and keep reaching out to these agencies because, when they see how sincere you are, and always be very grateful, sound very grateful, and always say thank you to whomever you're dealing with when it has to do with your loved one. You don't ever want it to be short with anyone or be demanding or anything like that, because you need for these people to help you to get everything together so that your loved one has a smooth transition from wherever they're coming from in order to be at home. So always be kind. I mean, you should be kind when you're interacting with people anyway, but especially so when you have medical personnel that are working with you and trying to get everything done to help you to be able to help your loved one. And I don't mean to be insulting by saying please and thank you, but you'd be amazed at how many people don't acknowledge medical personnel and social workers, and they just assume, well, that's your job, do your job. Well, people can do their job. They can do their job and treat you like crap and have you continue to call or disconnect you when you call. Or they can recognize, oh, this is so-and-so, the one who's so nice when they talk to me. I'm never going to put them on hold. I'm going to go above and beyond for them. And that's how it was for me with Mommy. They talked to me so much about my mother that they knew who I was just from the sound of my voice. And sometimes I would cry because I would just be so exhausted. But they would always tell me, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. I was talking to everybody knew me. Everybody knew me and Mommy. Sometimes it was funny because they would say, how is Mommy today? I would say, Mommy's fine. So just keep that in mind, the Department of Aging. Okay, so as far as your home is concerned, make sure that it is spotless. Make sure it's very clean, but especially where your loved one is going to stay. Spend their most time in their bedroom, bathroom, or wherever. You always want their rooms and your house, but their rooms to be immaculate. You want the floors done. You want their room to smell good. You want people to know when they come in to check on your loved one that your loved one is being taken care of. Because if they think that they're not being taken care of, they will remove them and report you. Excuse me. So typically a social worker will say, or a nurse will say, well, we're going to come on this date at this time. But I learned that they don't do that. I may have mentioned this in a chapter, but they don't do that. They do little pop visits, which means they're doing those to make sure you're on your toes and to catch you off guard. They never caught me off guard. Why? Because I was like my mother. I'm like my mother. I keep things clean. They're tidy. I kept Mommy clean. Her room was clean. She smelled good. She looked good. And I may have looked crazy as hell when they came, but Mommy didn't. Mommy always looked the way she should have looked, and the house was always maintained. They could smell food cooking because I would have fixed mommy breakfast. I mean, I had my stuff together with my mother. I wasn't playing any games. Nobody was going to come into where I was with mommy and even think about taking my mother out of the house. That wasn't going to happen. And if it did happen, it would have been my fault. So I made sure that all of that was nice. If mommy pooped, I took the garbage out every day. I took those dirty diapers out every day. I called them her panties because I didn't want her to think she was wearing, adult diapers. I wanted to leave her pride. And I just made sure that everything was nice for mommy. I want to give you a little advice if you use adult diapers. When you get them from a service, and you should be getting things like underpads, those are the things that you put on top of the sheet so that if they poop and the poop comes through the diaper, it goes on the underpad, which prevents it from soiling the sheets. So when you have that service where they deliver underpads and diapers, and you have a service for medical supplies and things like that for wound care, which you'll be doing, you want to make sure that all of this stuff is set up before they release your loved one. So they shouldn't be releasing your loved one before the hospital bed and the wheelchair, the patient lift, anything that's supposed to be within your home needs to be there before your loved one is released. If they say, well, we're going to release your loved one and then you're going to get those things in a few days, then you say adamantly, well, I'll see you in a few days because I'm not going to put my loved one on a roof. So you have to make sure that you have those things ready, and then you can release my loved one. And that's how it goes, and that's what they should do. So you have to insist on that. And you can say it where they understand that you're not playing any games, but where you say it and you're still being respectful. So let's see what else I have on this list. If you decide, there's so much here, if you don't ever leave money with your loved one under any circumstances, especially if they have dementia. They may want you to leave them money because otherwise they're going to feel like, or may say to you, you don't have to treat me like a child, I'm not a child. Well, you're not treating them like a child, but if they forget you left money, somebody else could take it from them. So you don't want to leave anything of real value. It's better to just ask them what they'd like for you to bring, and then you bring it, whether it's candy or magazines or something like that. And if you use your own supplies, as I did for cleaning purposes, because a lot of times I didn't like the way they cleaned my mother's room. I didn't think they did a good job. So instead of complaining, I would just do it myself. And I would have wipes, diaper wipes for my mother. I'd have those sanitary wipes, Clorox wipes, so I could wipe down the bathroom and do all of that stuff. I did all of that. And I put my mother's name on these things and put them away. So you can bring your own supplies if you want to. Just make sure that that you have your mom's name on them, or your dad, or whomever is being looked after within one of these facilities. Never be afraid to advocate for your loved one. Never be afraid to speak up, even if it's a doctor, if it's a nurse, whatever they're saying. If you don't understand it, tell them I don't understand it. Don't just take things on face value. If they say something, then they need to explain why they're doing a certain thing. And if you still don't understand, they need to keep explaining it until you do. And that's easy enough. But you're going to be the advocate for your loved one, and that you're going to be the only one to speak up for them. And so if that's what you find that you have to do, then that's what you have to do. These facilities, there are some very beautiful facilities. I saw a lot of them with my brothers and my sister. But they're facilities, they're rehab facilities, which means they could be paved in gold and have gold toilets, and I wouldn't give a damn. The facility isn't going to watch your loved one. The people within the facility will watch your loved one. And these places don't really have enough personnel to go around. So you have to be on top of things, and you have to see, it may not be possible, but I would say make it your goal to see your loved one every day, because that's the only way you're really going to know what's going on, or at least no less than several times a week before you bring them home, if you're going to bring them home. And hopefully that is the goal, to have them home with you, because no place is better than home with you. But if that can't be done, then you can't just put them somewhere and assume that because it looks pretty, the place is nice, that they're going to be nice to your loved one. That is not always the case. A lot of times it's not the case. Also, if your loved one, especially if they have dementia, if they tell you that they're afraid of someone, or if they can't tell you they're afraid of someone, but you see a reaction from a certain individual that might walk into the room and all of a sudden your loved one looks afraid, that means there might be a reason why. So I would suggest being there as often as possible and never coming at the same time, so that they don't expect you. So you give them a pop visit so you can see what's going on. And if it comes down to it, you put a little camera someplace in the room that will record what's going on. Now, I'm sure a lot of agencies probably wouldn't like this, but I feel like this. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, then it's going to record perfection. And if you're not doing what you're supposed to do for somebody's loved one, then your ass should go to jail, or you should be sued. So that's how I feel about putting a camera in. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. So I'm just going to take a quick look and see if I've forgotten anything. When nurses come to your home and they do things like wound care, in my case, they would come and they would change Mommy's bandages on her back, because she had a huge incision on her back from the surgery that still hadn't healed, and she had some wounds on the heels of her feet. The nurse came in and she changed the bandages, and she said, now these have to be changed every day. And I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And she said, no, you won't see me until next week. And I said, but you said they have to be changed every day. And she said, yes, you're going to have to do it. She said, or you can wait until I come back. And I said, well, why would I want to wait until you come back next week if you're telling me they need to be changed every day? So that meant I had to stand there, and I watched, and I learned how to change the bandages for my mother every day. Mommy helped me by being able to pull herself up when she could, but when she couldn't, I had to find a way to maneuver her so that I could do it. And her bandages got changed every single day. They were clean. Her bandages were clean. Her wounds were healing. And I'm not saying this because I'm like some, superhero person. I was just a daughter who loved her mother, and I wasn't going to let anybody take Mommy from me. And so I was just doing the best I could. It wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could, and everything I did out of love. So I'm suggesting that you might get, they have these brown folders, multi-folders, and you keep the records, like whatever meds your loved one is taking, you write all that out, the dosages, because when you go to the emergency room, if you have to go or to the hospital, they might ask for that. So you always want to make sure you have that on hand. You also want to make sure you have copies of anything that the nurse or doctor signs when they come to your home to to give your loved one a checkup. So sometimes they'll have a copy, and they'll give you a copy, and they'll keep the original, but sometimes they don't have a copy. If they don't have a copy, then you take your phone and you take a picture of their original, so that you always have a history of every single thing that's done to your loved one in case something goes wrong. I have written down here, prune juice is your friend. And that's because when Mommy didn't eat enough, she would tell me that her tushy hurt. And I knew I had to make sure that the poop was coming out. Sometimes I had to help it along by putting on a glove and doing it, but I didn't like doing that because I didn't want to hurt Mommy. So the best thing that I did was to give Mommy like a half a cup of prune juice. If I had to give it to her 2 days in a row, I knew she was going to be pooping a lot. So when she did start to become regular, I knew I could let up on the prune juice. So make sure that you keep prune juice handy just in case they might need it. There are facilities, like if you need a lift, you should be able to get like a patient lift. I got a wheelchair for Mommy. I had a patient lift. I had a bed. It wasn't an electric bed, it was a manual, but it was a nice one. But Mommy had insurance that covered that. For people that don't, there are places where you don't have to buy this equipment. You can rent it by the month. Beautiful electric hospital beds that they rent for $140 a month. Lifts that I saw for $100 to $140 a month. Those things are really, really good. It's good to know that you can rent that kind of stuff if you absolutely have to. As far as when you're dressing, especially if you're doing it alone, try to get sleep when your loved one sleeps. Just imagine your loved one is a baby, like when you had your babies, if you have children. When the baby goes to sleep, that's when you try to get some sleep. When the baby goes to sleep, that's when you try to take a shower. That's what I had to do for Mommy. I had to try to wait for Mommy to go to sleep, even though she didn't always sleep well because she was in a lot of pain. But when she did close her eyes, I learned what a 2-minute shower felt like. So I was jumping in that shower and sudsing up and jumping out. And I just learned to do things more quickly when I had the time. So I appreciated the time that I had. I prayed a lot. My brothers got me an iPad, so I was able to maybe watch a movie on the iPad when Mommy was resting. I listened to music. I did things to try to keep my mind occupied and to calm me down so that I could be strong enough to get through the remainder of the day and night and get through the following day and days and weeks and months. I believe that I've mentioned everything that I wanted to. If there's more, I'm going to just say, assuming I've forgotten something or I think of more, I'm going to say that this is part 1 of the advice section. And just in case there's more, and if there's not more, then this will be all of it. But I'll probably think of more just to finish it up and so that you have it. But I'm trying to quickly go over everything. And it looks like I it looks like I mentioned everything that I might need to mention right now. But as I said, if I think of more things, I'll definitely make another recording so that you have that. I hope that this was helpful. I have a website that's going to hold the audio chapters, and I have that so that if somebody needs it, I can submit a link. I can send a link to people. I'll make sure that I use social media to get the link passed along so that people have access to this, of course, for free. And I'm doing this for Mommy in memory of my mother. I'm doing this for caregivers, all of the people out there who do so much to take care of a loved one. I'm doing it for caregivers who are just becoming caregivers and have no idea what to do and think that they can't do it alone, but you can. You really, really can. I offer my email address so that if people need to write and have somebody to talk to, they'll be able to do that. I will also, my intent is to have a separate phone just for people that reach out so that I can have that phone specifically to talk to people who need somebody to talk to when something is happening with their loved one, or just when they just need to cry or need somebody to talk to. That's my goal. That's the end of my chapter on advice. If I have more, then I'll come back. Be well.